Are the Big Ten and the SEC positioning themselves to control the college football playoff going forward? What will that mean for the Big 12 and what should they do? There are meetings this week going on with CFP leadership that could decide the future of the CFP, and we're going to talk about that and what it means for the Big 12 right after this word from my sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store. What is up? Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. Come on in, belly yourself up to the bar, and let me pour you out a shot of top-shelf college football content. On tap at Couz's Corner today, we're once again talking conference realignment. This time we're talking about the news that came out yesterday, February the 4th, from Ross Dellenger at Yahoo Sports about the college football playoff meetings that are taking place this week, meaning Monday and Tuesday, among CFP leaders. Among those leaders, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, along with all other conference commissioners in the FBS and the AD Jack Swarbrick from Notre Dame. Maybe some decisions will be made at this meeting. Maybe they won't. But we're going to talk about this article from Ross Dellenger. He covers it all. Now, I'm not going to read the entire article to you. I'm going to leave a link in the description box to the article. But I will go over some of it. I will read parts of it to you because I figure Ross does a much better job explaining it to you than I do. So let's dive right in. Now, the most recent meeting was back in January when college football playoff leaders met in Houston to discuss the format of the CFP. That meeting was held just before the national championship game. They left that meeting with no consensus, which is required in order to make any changes. Right now, the way the rules are formatted for the CFP, there has to be unanimity for anything to pass right now. Now, once they get through this current contract, past 2025, they will no longer need I can't say that word. It will no longer need to be unanimous. But right now it does. And they have not been able to get that in previous meetings. Now, this is an excerpt from the article. It says, in an interview with Yahoo Sports earlier this week, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, for the first time publicly, expressed doubts in their commitment to the future of the college football playoff if leaders can't, quote, get right a litany of issues. It comes on the heels of an announcement Friday that the leagues were forming a joint advisory board to study the future of college athletics. Most of you probably have already heard about that. Basically, the Big Ten, the SEC have went together. They said, we're going to put our leaders together, our presidents, our ADs together, form this advisory board to help determine the path forward in college athletics. And apparently, according to Sankey, they've been asked to do that by members of the Division I Council because they're the two conferences with the most money. They're the two conferences with the most power. They're the two conferences with the most championships, the most exposure, yada, yada. They're the power two. Let's face it, guys. Well, they are the power two right now in college sports. Whether we like it or not as Big 12 fans, we might be considered a power conference technically, but when it comes to money and resources and championships, we're not on the Big Ten and SEC level. That's just the reality. So let's just go ahead and call it what it is. They are the power two. And they are being looked to by others to say, okay, what do you guys want to do? And then we'll follow your lead. And that's what they're doing. Now, a lot of people, when this was announced, speculated, this is the big separation where the SEC and the Big Ten separate themselves from everybody else. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's very possible. It definitely seems to be trending in that direction. But then this announcement comes out about the CFP, which I'm going to continue to read excerpts from the article, and it really definitely looks that way. Let's keep going. It says in the article, as the fee was committed to the CFP beyond 2025, Sankey said, quote, yep, but we've got a lot to get right. The commitment is we want to see this get right, end quote. The CFP Management Committee, made up of commissioners from the 10 FBS leagues and Notre Dame AD Jack Swarbrick, meets on Monday and Tuesday in Dallas for what is expected to be 2 days of work toward key decisions over the playoffs' long-term future. Sankey and Petitti stopped short of threats or ultimatums related to their inclusion in the CFP, but they each expressed frustration over challenges and delays on the 12-team format, as well as the unsettled revenue distribution model after 2025. They can't get the format agreed on. They can't agree on the revenue distribution model. They can't seem to agree on anything. Quote, "We have the reality of meeting the deal with CFP governance with the 2026 season and beyond. That's a highly important issue," Sankey said. "I'm new to CFP meetings," said Petitti, who took over as Big Ten commissioner last spring. "How these things develop, there have been some surprises. The focus on what this is going to look like beyond 2026 is highly important and deserves a lot of time and discussion," end quote. Now, why is it being held up? One person basically is holding this whole thing up, it seems, and that is Kirk Schulz, the president of Washington State University. Now, you've got the CFP management committee. Above them, you've got the CFP board of managers, which is a president from each conference represented. Each FBS conference has a school president on that board of managers. The one from the PAC, Kirk Schulz, Washington State. And at their meeting ahead of the national championship game in Houston, that board of managers was poised to move the 12-team expanded playoff from what's known as a 6+6 format to a 5+7 model, a decision corresponding with the Pac-12's realignment shakeup by decreasing by one the number of automatic qualifiers and adding one at-large spot. There's also a representative from Notre Dame on that board as well, by the way. However, the vote was delayed by the Pac-12's representative on the board, Washington State President Kirk Schulz, whose vote and a format change is necessary. I mentioned earlier, there has to be a unanimous decision. It has to be unanimous. The decision must be unanimous to change the format for the final 2 years of the current contract in 24 and 25. According to those with knowledge of the situation, Schulz introduced to CFP leadership a proposal that seeks a guarantee of voting rights and revenue distribution to the Pac-12, soon to be the Pac-2, with only Washington State and Oregon State, beyond the 2025 season. The proposal, presumably tied to his vote and a format change, was met with pushback. So basically, the way I read this, Kirk Schulz is basically saying, look, if you want us to vote for this 5+7 model that you guys want to change to, if you want my vote, then I need guarantees that the two teams that are left in the Pac-12 will still get equal revenue distribution as a power conference and will still get guaranteed voting rights. I have to give a shout out to the guys over at Big 12 Mafia Show. They've been talking about this for months. They have been pounding the table that this is what they see happening, and this is what Kirk Schulz is probably going to do, and he's doing it apparently. But just like I and others have said, there is no way Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, and others are going to give in to this. Why in the world would you give equal distribution to a conference with two teams that after a couple of years, they may not even be a conference anymore, and if they do, they'll be filled with a group of 5 schools, which is a whole nother topic brought up in this article. Let's keep going. Schulz declined to comment through a spokesperson earlier this week. The status of his proposal is unclear, but the topic is expected to be addressed during CFP meetings Monday and Tuesday. In interviews recently, the 4 major conference commissioners declined to get into specifics about the format situation. That said, the CFP format is at the center of ongoing debate, both the number of overall participants as well as the number of automatic berths. The CFP Board of Managers approved an expansion format in 22 that grants automatic spots to the 6 highest-rated conference champions and at-large spots to the next 6 highest-ranked teams. Given the latest realignment wave, the 4 power leagues swelled to 16 to 18 members each. Listen to this part now. This is another critical piece of the discussion. The format is back under the microscope for further examination. Petitti has discussed with commissioners expansion models that include 14 and 16 teams with multiple automatic qualifiers to major conferences, sources told Yahoo Sports. Again, Petitti has discussed with commissioners expansion models that include 14 and 16 teams with multiple automatic qualifiers to major conferences. So theoretically, we could see a 16-team playoff where each power conference gets 2 representatives automatically, or each power conference gets 3 representatives, whatever. whatever, just throw out a number. Or maybe the Big Ten and the SEC get 4, the Big 12 and the ACC get 2, whatever. Pick a number. That seems to be what Tony Petitti's shooting for. But Greg Sankey seems to be shooting for something else. Sankey and his corresponding representative on the CFP board, Mississippi State President Mark Keenum, have suggested in the past that the model incorporate only at-large selections. The debate rolls on. So the SEC says, hey, let's not even have automatic bids. Let's just have the 16 or the 12 best teams play based on their ranking. Doesn't matter what conference they're in. We all know why Sankey wants that, because he knows the SEC will likely get more teams in than the other leagues. That is what's best for his league. And that's what's holding this up. Everyone is fighting for what's best for their league, and even more specifically, in the case of Kirk Schulz, for their own university. You've got all these people with all these different interests. They're all fighting for different things here. This thing may not ever get solved, because what's good for the SEC and the Big Ten is not good for the Pac. It's not good for the Group of Fives, and it's probably not even good for the Big 12 or the ACC in that matter, for that matter. Current CFP payout is $460 million annually, with the Power Fives getting 80% of that, the G5s getting 20%, and the rest divided among the independents and the FCS. The approximate payout for Power 5 teams is about $5 to $6 million per school. With the new model that's been discussed so far, this is what the article says. In addition to the primary distribution that I just mentioned, those teams qualifying for the playoff will receive $4 million. Those advancing to the quarterfinals get another $4 million, and teams in the semifinals and national championship game get $6 million for their league for each round, end quote. How revenue is distributed will be at the heart of discussions for the future of the CFP. The new look SEC and Big Ten will encompass most college football's powerhouse programs. Most are expecting, here's another key point. Most are expecting the two leagues to want more in revenue distribution, as well as more weighted voting rights on key issues. They may get it too. Starting in 2026, format and revenue matters do not need unanimous consent among the 11 commissioners and their corresponding 11 presidents. There will be plenty of new revenues to distribute, given the impending extension of the ESPN deal. The College Football Playoff and ESPN are in the final stages of agreeing to a 6-year extension that would run through the 2031 season and pay $1.3 billion annually, according to a story published last month by its own network. Any format alterations to the 12-team model could be baked into the new contract. But for now, there is nothing binding the 10 FBS leagues together beyond 2025. A note that CFP's most powerful leaders are well aware of. And here's where I'm going to end the article part. A quote from Greg Sankey. We don't know as a group what the CFP structure looks like from 2026 and beyond, Sankey said. That's on our mind. There is nothing binding all those conferences together past 2025 as far as the college football playoff goes. It's very, very logical to think that SEC and Big Ten could try to do a breakaway here if they do not get what they want, or at least most of what they want. So was this a subtle threat from Sankey that they will break away from the G5 if they don't get what they want, or even break away from everybody else? Just like Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, mentioned in his D1 proposal a few weeks ago. Remember what he said? He thinks there needs to be a separate division for the richest programs. Now, I'm paraphrasing it, but that's what he basically said. For the programs who can afford to pay NIL money directly to student athletes, and for those who can withstand that, and also those who can afford to deal with the payouts coming from all the court cases that are pending. The SEC and Big Ten are really the only two conferences lined up to be able to pay that. So is this setting up for them to break away? And what does this mean for the Big 12? Well, there's two ways you can look at it. One way you could say, well, Brett Yormark and the Big 12 better figure out a way to work with the Big 10 and the SEC. They better get on board with them. What's the old adage? If you can't beat them, join them. Maybe Brett Yormark needs to have that mindset right now. And I hate that, because you don't like to see those two conferences get all the power. However, another old adage, beggars can't be choosers. And right now, everybody except the SEC and Big Ten are basically beggars. And the Big 12 must do everything it can to keep its seat at the power conference table. So Brett Yormark needs to get as close to Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti as possible. Become best friends with those guys. Talk to them on the phone. Meet with them as much as possible. Find out what you can do to be an advocate for them in these discussions. Help fight with them for what's best for the power conferences. But here's the problem. If that happens, that means the Big Ten and SEC might get a bigger chunk of the revenue of the college football playoff, which is less money for the Big 12, and there is already a huge gap. It could widen that gap even more if that happens. So Brett Yormark has to make a decision here. Do you try to get the Big Ten and SEC more so you get more? Or do you fight them and risk being left out altogether? And that's option B. You say, you know what? Let's let the Big Ten and SEC do whatever they're going to do. Let's just try to work with the ACC, work closely with the ACC. Maybe the Big 12 and ACC form some kind of committee of their own, just like the Big Ten and SEC did. And they try to do what's best for their leagues. And maybe you include Washington State, Oregon State in that as well. And you have a totally separate tier in college football that is completely separate from the SEC and Big Ten. Maybe it's just the ACC, the Big 12, and Washington State and Oregon State. Maybe you get a few of the higher, bigger brands in the G5 to join you. I'm not sure how it looks. But maybe that's the best option. It would suck. As a West Virginia fan, that would suck for me and my team, because that likely means we're not a part of the quote-unquote big boy table. Now, Ren Baker has been adamant that he'll do whatever it takes to make sure West Virginia keeps that seat. But who knows? Maybe there's nothing he can do at this point. Maybe the toothpaste is already out of the tube. Maybe the genie's already out of the bottle. Maybe the Big 12 and the ACC just have to suck it up and realize they're getting left behind. Try to maximize the revenue they can maximize, whether it be with basketball or whatever. Just enjoy good football, enjoy good basketball, and let bygones be bygones and let the chips fall where they may. That's plan B. Which option do you think is the best for the Big 12? Would you rather the Big 12 still stay attached to the SEC and Big 10, even if it means your teams are at a major disadvantage and may never be able to compete on an equal playing field with them? Or would you rather see the ACC and the Big 12 do their own thing anyway? Let's screw the SEC and the Big 10. Let's just do what we want to do. Let's do our own thing with teams that are our peers from a financial perspective. Have a whole different tier, have a whole different league, whatever, whole different division. Maybe absorb teams like a USF and a Memphis. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how it would look. But whatever it is that the answer? I don't know. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm kind of torn on it. Like I said, it would suck as a West Virginia fan to see my team get left out. But at the same time, if you have your own tier, your own league, you're playing against teams that are closer to you in resources, closer to you financially, closer to you competitively. That league could even have its own championship potentially. I don't know. It would be a tough adjustment. It would suck at first, but long term, would it really make that big of a difference? Would you love your team any less? Would you stop watching your team play if they weren't attached to the Big Ten and the SEC? I want to hear your thoughts. I'm kind of torn here, so I need help making up my mind what I would rather see. Guys, I want to give a shout out right now to my VIP members of the day. Those fine folks are C. Dotson B210, Tom Reinhart, Andrew Smith, and Todd Biela. Thank you all for being VIP members here at Couz's Corner. Hit the join button below to sign up today, and you can be a member as well. There is a pub level for $2.99 a month, a club level for $4.99 a month. Also, if you want to purchase something, I have a merch store you can check out, or you can support your favorite team while also supporting me and get ONIT NIL trading cards. Buy some ONIT NIL trading cards of your favorite team, which West Virginia is available. Get yourself some cards. 60% of the profits go to the student athletes. I'll make a small commission, and you get yourself some really cool trading cards in the process. You can also help me for free by liking, sharing, comment, subscribing, and by watching this video right here, which also talks about conference realignment. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Have a top shelf day, and Q Country Roads.